Everybody, oh my God, I got a lady on the channel today. Oh my God, I met her. Let me tell you, I met her. I went to Selma and I met her as I had crossed over the bridge. And she was standing there and she came up to me. It was divine intervention, my folks. And I thought she was hitting on me. And I was like, this is a good looking lady. But nonetheless, I'm glad she did because here she is. I didn't know her story until we got to talking. And then she told me what she does and her energy is and she smiles and all that stuff. I said, my God. And we exchanged numbers and so on and so forth. I'm in Detroit. She's in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so we decided once she told me what she did, I said, ma'am, I would really love it if you came on my show, Strong Inspirations. She said, cool. And here we are. I'm Anthony Brogdon, and I'm finding these people one way or another. Either they hit on me, I hit on them. I send out messages. I don't care how I get to them because you, my viewers, got to hear this. This lady is her passion, and it's all gonna come through. Watch. So hit the subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. I don't ask no money. I don't ask no questions. I just want you to let me know how much you appreciate what I'm doing. That's what that does. Hit the like button on this video. There is no love button, but you will gonna love it. Love is a part of her moniker, her brand. So I know you're gonna love this. And then hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. You're gonna get a ding, a shock, the horn on your car goes off. Stuff happened to you just for a second to let you know there is new content on Strong Inspirations. And there's content every day in some form or fashion. Because one of the things that I'm doing is I identify significant dates in history. Like I put out Frederick Douglass's great grandson. You should watch this one. His son, three-time great. I've interviewed him. So on Frederick Douglass's birthday back in February, I released that video. I released the video that talked about W.E. Du Bois in February. The video I did, there's a couple of them. Watch these. The guy wrote a book about what happened on Highway 80 in Alabama. A whole bunch of strife happened on that highway. And I released that video during the March, Selma, and also the video that same gentleman, he's a professor at Alabama State, did on what happened on the bridge crossing. So, and because this is going into March, is Women's History Month, every Sunday for the month of March, at 5 o'clock, I release a video about women. You see what I'm saying, my friends? I'm giving it to you. And it's the people like this lady that come on the show that allows me to have that to give to you. So watch that. Don't come on, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button, hit the notifications bell, and tell somebody about us. Don't keep it to yourself. You walking around, let's say a lady like this just to come up to you and she just, maybe she's saying some things to you, you know, what have you. And then you get to telling her all this stuff you know on Strong Inspirations. She like impressed. And you don't even tell her where you got it from. Don't do that. Let it flow, my friends. Now, a couple of housekeeping. I'm a filmmaker, everybody. And as you know, I did this documentary called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I did not know there were enslaved Black folks who went to college. I did not know there were enslaved Black folks who owned businesses. They did not teach that to me. I was a decent student too. And so I did this documentary on it. I took it to 40 cities across America, and I'm still taking it places. Still, it's on Amazon. Watch that. On the urging of some of the people who came to see the film, they said, write a book about it. And now I have a book out on that topic and more. Get you a copy of this book. It has become America's #1 Black business history book. I got 30 enslaved Black folks who own businesses in here, and so much more. Get you a copy of this. It's on Amazon and on my website, businessintheblack.net. Check me out, my friends. I'm thorough. I follow through on mine. Now I got something for kids. Started about age 7. It's called They Did It. It's 30 Black business owners who lived in the 1800s. It's real easy to read. I give you a picture of them. I tell you their name, the year they were born, and what they did. So get you a copy of this. That's on my website, businessintheblack.net. Go to the website. You find out all I'm doing, because I'm going places this year. I went to that Selma, and I'm in June, for Juneteenth, I'm going to be on the island of Galveston. And I got other places I want to go, because I've interviewed people like in Elaine, Arkansas. I'm going to try to get there. All right, so do that. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. I just like what strong stands for. And in my world, strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the guest on the channel today. I'm telling you, oh my God, if I lived in Knoxville, she would be in trouble. Oh, her spirit is good.
One
Come
love.
on, sister, introduce yourself. Thank you for being on Strong
One
Inspirations.
love. Thank you for your energy. You are a whole vibe, and I appreciate that. My name is Sister Felicity Love, born and raised in Birmingham, Alabama, living in Knoxville, Tennessee for the past 18 years. I'm a mother of 5 talented children, and I do a lot in my community to simply spread love via the arts. I believe that love is the answer. And for me, love simply means teaching it. You teach it and you model it so that children could learn it, observe it, visualize, and express it. So everything that you're doing, it is exactly what I want young people to see. You are highlighting people who have trudged through mountains, trudged through all types of storms, and they've made a name for themselves in the middle of everything that they were going through. So I highlight that in my poetry. And then I put all of my research and everything that I learned into my work, and I teach it to children. I teach it to children and communities and adults. And basically, I'm just on a mission to motivate all through expression.
Okay. Let me stop you right there. Let me stop you right there right quick, because I got to ask you a couple questions about you personally for the guests to get to know you. You said you were born in Birmingham. In the Black neighborhood, white neighborhood, what was that dynamic?
I was actually born, I believe I was raised in Fairfield, but I was pretty much born in Fairfield, but when I turned about 5, my family moved to, the Birmingham area. Really, to me, it was no difference. It's like a skip and a hop. So Fairfield and Birmingham are, relatively intertwined. So I grew up in Fairfield and Birmingham, but I graduated from A.H. Parker High School. I grew up in Smithfield. So the Black community, yeah, that's just it. Yeah. Okay. Underserved community, but it was also the community, right up the street from the 16th Street Baptist Church. Parker High School was the predominantly African-American school. A.H. Parker High School, A.H. Parker, well, that's his name. The school is named after Alma Powers' father. She was the wife of Colin Powers. So, yeah, it's a rich history. It's where all the marches.
The wife of who?
The wife of Colin Powers, the attorney general back when I think Bush was president.
Oh.
Yes, it was her father. Yeah, a lot of people come out of that area in Smithfield. But it's basically, yes.
Let me ask you this. So growing up there, did you know white people?
The only white people that I knew were my teachers. And I questioned that there were a handful of students at my school, and I always questioned that. But the thing about that is that those white people were my teachers, and I always wondered why were they there. And learning so much about Birmingham and the racism that shaped that city, I always wondered why were my teachers so nice. and that's the thing. I was like, wait, there gotta be some goodness to, there got to be something else besides, white people just being racist. So
All right.
I know that those teachers, I took to those teachers, and I was just wondering what would make them come all the way over here. I always felt like in Birmingham, there was white flight. And so I did live in a predominantly Black neighborhood that didn't used to be predominantly Black. So I mean, and I just wondered about that. What made these teachers come to this particular school?
Let me ask you this question. With that being said, how did you learn what happened in Birmingham?
Well, it's ironic, but in the Birmingham public school system, they taught it. Everything that we learned. I guess if you had a mind to receive it, right? Our history, all the history lessons and everything that I learned, it was in school. Majority. The other half came from my grandmother taking me, not talking a lot about it, but taking me to what I thought was parade. Because I guess my uncle was in the band. And so she just took me as a child to all of these parades. It wasn't until I actually became older that I realized that I was actually going to the marches that were led by the SCLC after Dr. King was no longer alive. So they continued those marches, they were commemorative, but they were marches that was led by everybody that walked with Dr. King.
All right, let me ask you this question. You say those marches are marches of what? And was there specific days that they marched, or activities? Tell us a little bit.
So at this time, since I'm an 80s baby, so at this time, I do believe that we were marching to celebrate Dr. King's Day, like the very first moment that they made it a holiday. That's what I believe we were doing. But I was only a baby. As I grew older and started getting into high school, I was in the band. And then now I was in these same marches. And then I was also in the band playing in, like me as a child, you just follow where you're going, right? Whatever they're paving the way for me to just be a part of this. But like I'm saying, it wasn't until I was an adult that I looked back on it and saw what I was really doing. We were in the 16th Street Baptist Church playing music, commemorating all of that. But I didn't know. I was just in the band. So that's why I learned all of it.
Yeah, so let me ask you this then. Well, first of all, you did allude to white people. Did your parents tell you, or was the fear of white people kind of gone by that time, or did they still have some stigma of white better than Black, or whatever it could have been?
Okay, so the thing about that, about this time, I think anything that was light and not even white, that was the stigma that I was raised with. So not even that the white people were oppressing us, but there were a lot of, it was a lot of colorism that I was learning that in my high school that I went to. If you weren't of a darker complexion, if you were of a darker complexion, you couldn't even be on the, you couldn't be on the majorette team and stuff like that. So I just feel like I was learning more than what they was really teaching me. But I feel like my family who were Christians, they never focused on, all of the bad things that happened to us as a race. They really did focus on the love and the unity that we were supposed to be showing to one another. So that's what I learned as a child. I mean, and that's like I said, of course there was, because I didn't see any white people, but my teachers, I started questioning things. But like, why are they here? And then I started seeing these teachers loving on me and putting into me. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't about race anymore. It wasn't about race anymore for me. Although I know I could see that I learned later in life that a lot of things that happened in my family happened due to the racism. And that's when I got older and started talking to family members. So you can ask me about that, but I definitely will tell you about that part.
Yeah, let's give me a little bit of that. Something happened to your family.
So I have two sides of my family. So do you remember my grandmother, Queenie? She raised me in a church. She gave me a microphone at a young age and taught me how to express myself. So on that one end was that school that was teaching me about my talents and rising above my circumstances, not caring about the negative things. But on the other side, I learned about my grandfather. My grandfather, who was he was indigenous, and white, but they didn't care. And back in that day, my grandfather came from Bullock County, I believe it was Bullock County, Union Springs, and he was the first in his little subdivision to build his house from the ground up. Well, still, because he was an amazing artist, I would say brick mason, nobody would hire him in the segregated South in Birmingham, Alabama. So he had to go work in a steel mill. Well, my grandfather was an alcoholic. And what I heard is that my grandfather would take all the frustration that he felt from the way they were treating him at his job. Although he was very good, the white man treated him wrong, called him boy, and he would take that frustration out on his family. His wife was darker complected, but it was a lot of things. Another thing that I learned, that grandfather, in the middle of Dr. King being in our city, urging us to come together in unity to fight oppression, he would not allow his kids to be a part of any of that. On the other hand, my mother's mother was walking with Dr. King in those marches, and she was letting her kids, and they were a part of the kids that were being sprayed by the, the whole, they were stopped. They were the ones that were fighting, and the kids of the movement, the children of the movement. That was my grandmother's side, but my father's dad would not allow them to be a part of that.
All right, let me ask you a question on this. So him being lighter complected still had to give him some advantages, though, didn't it?
You would think so, and I think because it didn't, it messed him up. I think it messed him up because he's like, hey, I'm not even, you know what I'm saying? I'm not 100%. But so I just feel like it was a lot of trauma from that nobody was addressing. Nobody addresses the trauma of that, you know what I mean? And this whole cycle of violence that he ended up perpetuating when he lost his son to carbon monoxide poisoning. And to say the least, he ended up killing my grandmother.
Oh,
so
my God.
He shot and killed my grandmother. And it was, and so the thing is, the person that knew this was they had 8 kids. And my father was the 5th child. He knew everything that I'm telling you, but he's never mentioned it. The only people, so it's like everything that's happening is speculation, and other children that had visions within the family that moved out, you know what I'm saying? Like it was 8 kids. So the older kids had visions that things were going to happen. But the one who knew everything, he never spoke on it. Well, he never told me. So I found out later that it was gunplay, and that grandfather would always pull that gun out when he was drunk. But this particular night, he didn't, the firing pins was in the gun when he didn't suspect it. I don't know if this story is true, but this is what I've gathered from all the family members. And that my father was the one that he beat, because there was a lot, like I said, it was a lot of anger coming from what he was dealing with. He would take it out on his kids. So that particular day, grandmother, who I know I never got a chance to meet, grandmother was a determined woman. And I feel like she didn't want to see her husband fail, but she also wanted what was best for her kids. Grandfather didn't want her to work. He didn't. And when she met him, she was in nursing school. I got this from one of my aunties. And the fact that when she saw that he was drinking up all the funds and was stressed out about everything he was going through at work, she went back to nursing school. And when she did that, that didn't sit well with him. And so he would be throwing books in the garbage can. He would be doing a lot of things. And this is coming from other aunties. So there's going to be some people that watch this and be like, that didn't happen. And this is coming from some of the kids that witnessed him doing this, turning the lights out, and just really bothered by her and trying to stop her. But she persevered, took the test, and became a nurse. In doing that, it may have taken her away from the kids, but him not understanding the importance of them working together, he was thinking that he should have been the one doing everything, and that just wasn't working out.
Yeah, I've heard.
So grandma was like,
before.
I'm gonna help my man. Now, some people would say, why didn't she leave? But that wasn't easy to do. She had 8 kids. I didn't say 2. I said 8. And he built the house from the ground up. So she had, what she needed. She just thought she was going to help him. And that didn't sit well after one of the children died in the carbon monoxide poisoning. And I believe the other child, right before this happened, she might have been 8 or 9 months pregnant, and she was only like 15. Man. She was only like 15. So I think
Yeah.
he blamed her. I think he blamed her. If I'm not getting this right, I'll blame it on the family members who
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
told me
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
but and
Sure.
piecing together everything. I
Sure.
believe he blamed her for it, and
Yeah.
nevertheless, it had a devastating effect on all the kids left behind, and nobody put them in trauma therapy. Nobody, nobody understood that. And now to this day, my father is a recovering alcoholic. But my aunts and uncles, they all struggle with hiding their feelings. I think only one or two of them really forgave their father. My grandfather was released from prison. He only served, I don't know, when I met him, I was 3 years old when I met my grandfather. So that means he wasn't locked up forever. My grandmother was killed in 76, and it was 80 years old at 1980 when I was born. So I just remember my grandfather being this loving man. So I questioned stuff as I got older. I remember my
Mm.
grandfather being in my life. Well, my father found what he needed to forgive his father. I write poetry about a lot of things, but we are very careful. Me and my brother are artists in the family. We're careful about what we say because it triggers some of the other children who feel they don't know how to feel because
Yeah.
they love their mother, but their father is the one who took their life. But my father, silently, without even saying anything, is the one that really showed me what real love looked like when he was helping his father until he died. He would go and see his father in the halfway house. And it was my mother who later married my father who sat down at the table with my grandfather, and he cried out to her and said he didn't mean to do it. So it was just a lot of that, me just receiving that.
Okay.
That's what pushed me on what I do now
All
without
right.
a lot of people even knowing that,
Right.
because they always suspect you to have directly being impacted by the violence. But or they have to see you struggling, you know what I'm saying, before they listen to you and help, listen to you and understand what is driving you. So that is what has driven me in so many ways to do what I've been doing in the
Okay.
community.
Let
Yeah.
me ask you this question, and we've heard it so often, and we're gonna stay on that just a tad. I don't mean no disrespect in that regard. Is that Black men did go through a lot of trauma. They left the families in some respects. They were abusive. I've had several people on the show who said the whippings I got were more than they should have been. And some of what you're saying, alluding to, was the conditions of him not being able to be the man that he thought he should have been.
Yes. And him thinking that he was supposed to provide for his family, and it wasn't working the way he thought. But here, God had given him this beautiful queen that gave him all these babies and said, I'm going to stay here with you and I'm going to do what comes easy for me. But he could not receive that. I would love to share some of my poetry that I wrote about that. But I feel like everything happens for a reason, and only those who have a pure heart can see what God is trying to get us, to get out of those atrocities, out of those things. It's so
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
we can
yeah. I
say this
got
shouldn't
you.
have
I got you.
happened.
I got you.
But when my grandmother on my other side, her her showing me that God has a plan in everything, allow you to move in that plan and do what you can to prevent it from happening again. But yeah, it did happen like that. That's
Now,
exactly what
so
happened.
much of what has happened in our history with Black folks is that we relied on God. So many of us became Christians. So many of the men became ministers. Church played a integral role in our life because of the trauma that we felt, and because of that, we had to have some way to de-stress ourselves. When you say
Exactly. I would say that, and when I'm telling you that on my mother's side, they knew God, they followed Dr. King's teaching, which was all about love, and on my grandfather's side, he didn't believe in God. He didn't, and that's why he didn't. And I feel like he internalized so much. I mean, if I could share that poem, it is
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah. We'll get to
is.
it. Let me ask you this.
Okay,
Let's go back a
yeah.
little bit further. Do you know where the plantation is in your family?
Well, it's really funny that in my particular family, we've been tracing this. We've been tracing it down, and what we found is most of our people are indigenous, which doesn't mean that there wasn't a plantation, but we found more of our people being native of native descent, and there being definitely some slaves. So we're still tracing. I have an 18-year-old that's tracing things because these are things they didn't talk about in our family. They never talked about it. I've heard that on my grandmother's side of the family, that my 15-year-old grandmother was in Louisiana when a man by the name of Ben Franklin married her. Like, that didn't make sense to me. Going, like, did he just marry her? But he married her, and from there, so my family never talked about that slavery. I always questioned why was I so light-skinned, and all of my grandmothers, they just my grandmothers and her sisters, they were so, lightly complected, but nobody ever talked about, that plantation part of it. They didn't.
And so you think what happened is, when you say indigenous, you're talking about Indian.
I'm talking about Native Americans who were also in, what I'm saying? We don't talk about that as much. My son has been telling me that we need to understand that we are not just like Black people are made, basically, even the indigenous people are mixed with Black. Like, Black is in all of us. We don't really focus on that. We don't focus on how a group of people, their land was stolen from them, and then they were put in a position where we were just Blacks and whites Blacks and natives were enslaved together. And so from there, you get us, my people, that nobody, my son is trying to figure it out, but nobody's talking about that.
Well, let me see, and this is, you might have already answered this. How did y'all get to Birmingham?
All right. So I would say, coming from my father's side of the family, I know more about how we got to Birmingham, that everybody was moving up. They were going north, but I guess wherever he was at, he moved to Birmingham because there were more opportunities. I know, job opportunities. That's what he thought. So they're not really saying a lot, but somehow this man was able to buy property. And he was the first one in that little subdivision to build his house from the ground up. So I feel like there were more opportunities for him to do that. I don't know where he got that money from.
Was it the steel mill, though? The steel mill
I think it was the steel mill, and I would say it was the steel mill. But I feel like maybe because he was a brick mason, he thought he would be able to also, and I guess they were masons. They were all masons in the steel mill. So that's probably what happened. Yeah. That's probably what happened. Yeah. I would say that was it.
Was the steel mill still going when you was a little kid?
I really feel like it might have been, but my father was not working there. So I can't tell you that. I mean, it was a rich history of it. Fairfield, that's where it was at. I believe our house was right in front of it, like on a street in front of it. So but I just don't, that's not the stuff that my father, put in me, that by this time it's time to go to school and work and do, like, they didn't want that same life for their kids. They didn't want their kids to be working hard in that aspect.
When you were growing up, did you was there things that they did around the 16th Street Baptist Church?
Yeah, there was so many things that they did around the 16th Street Baptist Church that shaped what I do today. So they always had programs in that church, and my band was always there playing. And I remember Reverend Woods being someone that was at my school, always involved in it. And that's what I'm saying. And it was not until 2019 that I recognized that he was the leader of the SCLC, that he was actually, walking with Dr. King. I had all these leaders were amongst us. Like, it wasn't just like when we went to Selma, we were around so many leaders. Have you ever spoke with Reverend Al Sharpton's sister? Because she was right there. No. Have you had a conversation with her?
No.
She was right there. Her group was supposed to do the backwards march, but because of everything that happened with, the president, and they kind of blocked off a lot of the streets. And so that group was not allowed to do what they normally do if you look at the schedule. But that was led by Reverend Sharpton's sister, who would be just like your mother, your grandmother, you wouldn't even know. So we were amongst in Birmingham. When I realized that when you're in these cities where all these people were mobilized, it doesn't stand out. It just become like a family thing, just a part of you. I didn't know that those were the people that were starting stuff. It just, they modeled it And I took it and I ran with it as I became older,
Yeah.
wondering, I didn't even know that my grandmother was at the March on Washington until she was dead and gone. And my uncle lifted up his shirt and told me, I didn't know he was one of the children. They didn't talk about that. And I was like, so that is why I've been moved to do a lot of things that I've been doing. I moved to Knoxville with the idea of keeping the dream alive. I started Divine Urban Expressions and gave the young people who I felt were from disadvantaged circumstances like me an opportunity to do what I did as a child, and that was to dance and express themselves. I wrote all types of poetry and music and chants. In August of 1965, the Voting Rights Act was finally signed. It granted all Americans the right to vote without taking tests and paying taxes at the polls, thanks to our leaders who risked their lives fighting for our civil rights. If you don't vote for yourself, vote on behalf of someone else. So I would do those things that was in me to teach it to the children that I was meeting in a space that I felt didn't learn about the civil rights movement the way I did. But guess what? Guess what happened to me in high school in Birmingham, Alabama, that shaped my life that I didn't even know? I was sent to an internship. I worked with a guy by the name of James Perkins. Does that sound familiar to you?
Mm. Mm.
James Perkins at the time
No.
was a businessman in Birmingham, Alabama, but he had a business. But when I was working for him, he was a mentor. So I was in an executive internship. And from there, he had me going through pictures of, he was a historian for Selma, Alabama at the time. And that is when I questioned and learned about the Bloody Sunday. I didn't learn about that in Birmingham. It was when it wasn't in school. I learned about that from this particular gentleman, James Perkins. Well, guess what happened? When I graduated, I went off to college. I left. And when I got, I was in a library where I worked, and I heard on the radio that Selma elected its first African-American mayor. And guess who it was? James Perkins. He is the mayor of
Oh,
Selma. So
oh, I
it's
love
so
it.
crazy, right?
Yes.
I actually ended up in all the festivities this year based on me trying to go find Mr. Perkins. And I would love to just meet and talk to him and
Yes.
remind him that he's the one that just by telling me to, look through these pictures
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
help
yeah,
him,
yeah.
that's the one that sparked my interest for the Bloody Sunday, which allowed me to write that chant that
Yes.
now all of the children in Knoxville and all of my children can say they know what happened based
Yes.
on,
Let me
and
ask you this. Let me ask you this question. Did white folks in your era were they accommodating? Because it seems like, and I'm just getting this because I come down and then I come back up north, that they
yeah,
seem to be like, yes, sir, a little bit more. I get an air that they're accommodating is a better word for what
yeah.
is happening. Not all of them, because still some of them are those races that we know about. But
Hmm.
do you get that impression?
I do get that impression. And right now, and as I feel, I'm grateful. We call them allies. So you mean when I was younger, I
Okay.
saw it, and I see it even more now. But I'll tell you that it's still harder for them to do that. Because a lot of us blacks, because of that untreated trauma, some of us don't find that genuine, and so we don't praise it a lot. So a lot of them, they do it, but then I think they get burnt out and then they feel some kind of way and they move on. I have witnessed that. Most of my biggest supporters are white. They're white preachers, white Christian people, or this one white guy who's just tired of the activists and tired of fighting the politicians that feel like there's got to be another way to do things. Now he's, gonna talk to me about some things. But yeah, I do feel that. I feel also from studying that a lot of white people who were oppressing us, that they were doing only what they were taught to do.
Yeah, I
They
heard that
There was
all the
a learn.
time.
Not only was it a learned behavior as children, because they weren't teaching love to their children. That's one thing. But the other thing, it was law. And we do find, as with the white lady who was killed, with helping, the freedom fighters. Remember her? She's
Right.
on the wall. She was white. So a lot of them and so many of them that try to speak up for us, they were killed. So they were just as much danger that we were in. So and then so you find the ones that didn't speak out, they felt like they were under the law and they was just scared. But then when the law kicked in Clinton, Tennessee, are you familiar with that? Clinton, Tennessee is where they said it's where 12 kids integrated the school. But they didn't just integrate the school. It was by law that they had to go to the school. Once the, what is it? The Plessy versus Brown decision kicked in.
Yeah, Brown versus Board of Education.
1956.
Yeah.
When that happened, a mother went to the Supreme Court and she was in Clinton. But during that time, they were busing kids all the way. They were still busing kids from Knoxville, Tennessee from Clinton to Knoxville. That's a 45-minute drive. So this mother took it all the way. She went to the Supreme Court and said, no, my child needs to go to the school that's right there because I can't afford to keep, doing this, get my kid up early in the morning and doing all this. So the judge ruled in her favor. But, when it's a ruling, everybody had to do it. So there was kids who did not want to have to do it. They didn't want to, but they had to. So those 12 kids were court mandated to go to this all-white high school. And they were met with so much opposition. And the people who stood up for them, it was one white preacher that decided to walk with these kids every day. And then he ended up sitting his congregation down because you wouldn't believe that most of these people went to church every Sunday that was, the aggressors and that were mad, at first they didn't care, but somebody from up north, a white man from up north came down there and was like, hey, you can't let them do this. And so, but then I found there was others in the community that said, it's the law and we're going to abide by the law. So eventually I feel like Clinton the name of the city is Clinton. So they eventually just got it together and they just kind of accepted. Well, the school was burned down. And I think like Billy Graham.
The white school was or the black school?
It was the Clinton. Yeah, the white school that was segregated was eventually burned down. Yes, it was a lot that happened while these African-American kids were just trying to get an equal education and they was court mandated to do it. And then, the school bought into it, and everybody started being okay with it, but there were still other people on the outside that couldn't stand for it. You've learned, so we don't talk about this much, but every time there was a milestone, every time in our history of the civil rights movement, when the law was changed, there was always violence. They were always met with violence. The 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed as a result of something that had happened. I think that Emmett Till was even killed as a result of the Brown versus Board of Education. There was always some type of violence that happened, of some of the people that just, couldn't deal with it,
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So you alluded to Emmett Till just a second ago. Yes. He plays a big part in your spirit. Because yes. you have a program on Emmett Till, or you play the mother. Am I right on that?
Yes, you are. So
tell us about that.
What I do, Healing Hearts Through the Arts. So we have Healing Hearts Productions. Most would call them programming, but because we're artists, it's basically a production that my son has been dancing with me since he was 3 years old, has been performing with me since he was 3 years old. So what I've done is we have created a piece that allows us to relay Mamie Till's story from a mother's perspective. We wanted to relay the love that this mother had for her child, but not just for her child, for every child. Because you notice that right after Emmett was killed, she didn't just sit there. He was gone. She actually marched. She spoke. She was hired by the NAACP to go around and share her story. But we have to think about that. It wasn't necessary for her son anymore. He was gone. Yes, she probably wanted to bring justice to him. But I think what she wanted to do is to get people up to vote so that they can change laws that, that would prevent, other children and other mothers from experiencing that type of pain. She made them keep the casket open. so that they could see. It wasn't until she did that the civil rights movement actually started. And we have to think about that. A lot of people go through violence, go through all this pain, like in my family, and they hide everything. But they need to understand that there might be for a bigger, a bigger purpose. And what Mamie was, what she felt is that her son was not going to die in vain. That his life had been sacrificed.
How did you pick her?
Well, this is why I picked her, because in the line of work that I do, I feel like I'm disrespected as a mother, or that people don't necessarily hear me out because I've never lost a child. So I'm in the line of work where I'm trying to help stop the violence. And so, but because I never lost a child, everything that I'm saying would go over people's heads. Like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. My son wasn't an AB student, but he's never been in any gangs, and I've been a single mom. You know what I'm saying? I've never been to prison. So when people see you, they're like, oh, you don't know nothing, and you can't really be speaking to this, because you never lost a child. Well, all of my friends, I can name so many friends that have lost children, but a lot of them are not yet in a position, because that's hard to even share. They don't even understand how God can change that. Like Emmett Till's mom knew. She prayed and called out, and she was able to see, I'm going to use this for good. This is going to be used for good. And so therefore, when the mothers that I knew, some of them, I had asked them to portray Mamie for me. And it comes down to the point where there was nobody around to do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to portray Mamie. So it's because every month we would focus on Black History Month in my program. We do Love is the Answer every month, and basically every February was Black History Month, and we would always do some type of Black history, commemoration or something. Sure. So it started with that, and when those mothers, it's Terry Walker Smith lost 2 children. She was the first one that put it in my mind about Mamie Till. When I asked her, can you please, relay what Mamie did? She was the first one, and she wasn't available the next year. Then I asked Talani. Talani lost a child, and she did a great job. She dressed up, and she said more. Both of them always spoke about everything else that Mamie did outside of opening the casket. Like even after that, how she took her children. She was a school teacher, so she would take her children around and give them a voice. So I was like, once I learned about that, I said, okay, I am a mother. I do still have children, and I do the same thing that she did. And I know that they listen to Mamie's story. They listened to Mamie's story back then, they would listen to it now.
Let me stop you right there. There. So what you do is y'all dress like her. That's the question.
Yes.
And then
I portray her.
And then you all are on stage portraying her sitting at the kitchen table.
Yeah, no.
Something like that. And is your son Emmett Till?
Okay, so my son would like to say that he is embodying the spirit of Emmett Till as a singer and a dancer. So our goal is to tie in the pain that mothers are feeling today to the pain that Mamie felt back in the day, and to let us understand that the racial violence that we once fought is now perpetuated as the Black on Black violence that we're feeling today, and that the same solution that they used back in the day to fight that needs to be the same solution that we use today. That we are doing too much to sit down and we're watching our children die every day, but we don't understand the power as people to do the smallest thing that we could do. And that's what Mamie did. She mobilized everybody. When they look and saw for themselves what was going on, that's how they ended up on that bridge. That's how they ended up fighting and marching with Dr. King, because they could see that it impacted not just, her, it was impacting them. That what Emmett went through was what they were going through, and they had to come together, to stop it. That's what we're trying to get across.
Do you tell what happened to him before you go into character?
So the thing is, through my words, you can tell what's going on. So the first part of the production is we are doing a silent reenactment of the train scene, where,
Okay.
she lets him go to Money, Mississippi, despite her not wanting him to go. And
Oh,
he's
okay.
all eager to go. So just the silent, there's a song called Black Leaves by Kirby. And if you just, listen to the song, you can gather what we're trying to relay. And that's the mother's intuition, the mother's love, letting him go, not wanting to let him go, but letting him go, and then understanding that it is a part of the bigger picture. We
I
focus a
got you.
lot on the names.
I got you.
Names.
I
Names
got
are
you.
very important. And we
I
focus
got
on
you.
the names of the kids who had been martyred during the Black Lives Matter movement and the Civil Rights movement. And
I
then we
got
get
you.
into the name. What did name what the name, so that we can understand that there's a purpose. There was a purpose in Emmett's name. His name meant universal. That most women with Mamie's name were women who were thought to who were going to change the world. Isn't that crazy? So they were named this before all this stuff happened to them. I
I
feel like
got you.
Mamie embraced this, and I don't think she even knew the meaning of her name.
Let me ask you this
She was
question.
walking in
Did you ever
that.
meet her? Because she wasn't,
You know, you
yeah.
know what? I did not. I did not get a chance to meet Mamie, but let me tell you who I met. And it is so crazy. I met one of Mamie's church members, and she was a little girl when this happened. So she also was there during this time when they opened the casket. I think the casket was open for two days. And do you know, in Chicago, all the schools took their children. It was like a field trip, and these kids were allowed to go and see his actual
Oh, I didn't know
face.
that.
Yeah, so my friend, Dr. Gina Barclay, she relays this to me, and this is something very important. She's somebody that probably you should interview,
Yeah,
but since
yeah.
you're not going to interview her right now, I'm going to share her story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Of
yeah, yeah.
Her mother had 11 children. And remember, Mamie later went on to be a school teacher. Well, Mamie was the teacher in her children's school. And there was and Mamie went to this mother and begged her if she could please allow her to have one of her children. And the child that she wanted was one of the guys that was like the class clown, I think. Like, he was always getting into trouble and stuff like that. So she went to Mamie and was like, you got 11 kids. Can I please have one of your children? And so the mother, she was like, no, you can't have any of my children. No, no, I'm sorry, but no. So, but this is what's crazy. The same lawyer that ended up fighting the battle to help, to bring light to, what I'm saying, now what we know about the case of Emmett Till and help to do a lot of things currently, is that young man. That young man went on to become Emmett Till's lawyer, and he is his lawyer to this day.
Wow.
Yes. So this is crazy. Yes. And this is the
Yes.
person that I learned in the middle of me following my spirit to embody Emmett. I just told my friend this one day, she lives in Knoxville, but she also lives in Florida when it gets warm. So I'm calling her and I'm telling her what I'm doing. And she was like, just speaking. Well, Mamie was my brother's teacher. I mean, she said, I was never in her class because I was younger, but I was able to travel with her. She took a lot of kids. So those are things. I didn't get to meet her, but I met
Yeah.
someone who
Yeah.
grew up under Mamie and went to
Yeah.
church with her.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Um, give me a success story, a short version of somebody who has seen your production, who's come up to you and said something. I know
Let
you
me
got a,
see.
I know you got a bunch of them, but
Well, I would say it's not necessarily seeing my production, but I'm saying believing in me and knowing and seeing me as a mother with a son. That's how I ended up performing at the Jubilee. We were there. So yeah, I would say the success story would be being in Selma on that right before I met you. We were allowed to perform at the high school that Friday with Miss Fire Rose. She invited us in. Although she didn't get to see what we was doing. I felt like she just felt like we're a mother and son. And I said, Mamie Till. And she said, okay. Well, when she put us on the stage, there was a lady that she had there, and that lady was so intrigued. She was like, are you in the play tonight? I said, no, I'm not in the play. She was like, well, how did you get on this program? And I said, what? She's like, because that was fascinating. That was amazing. I said, well, I knew, I just came up. Miss Fire Rose said she was going to give us a chance. And so we just drove up and we made it happen. She was like, oh my God, you just doing it. Oh my God, you just doing the thing. So that next day, my son, who is a dancer, so he was like, Mama, I want to perform at the hip hop summit. He kept saying he was going to perform. We are people that speak things into existence. So I said, well, let me go up there and see who I know. So I went up there to the stage and I saw the same lady that was excited about us making our way.
Yes.
And yes. And so I went up to her and I said, does everybody that's performing today, do they have to already be on the list? She said, were you booked? I said, no, I wasn't booked. No, first she said, oh, wait, I remember you. She was like, wait a minute, hold on. So she went up there to the DJ and she told all the MCs, hold on, we're going to put this lady and her son up here. She's like, they are amazing. They do this Emmett Till and Mamie tribute. And I was like, okay. And I said, well, I'm not going to do that right now. This is a hip hop summit. But what it did is it allowed me to to share and express my words spiritually spoken. I write about a poem. I have a poem called More Than Just Free. So I was able to share that. And that about time for my son to change to his dance clothes. And then he was able to perform his it's a jazz street jazz piece. It's much hip hop.
Okay, let me do this.
He performed that.
Can you do that poem? You got a poem you can do for us that'll close us out?
Yes, I do have a poem. Okay. Well, I've been praying about which one to share, and I think that More Than Just Free would be good.
Okay.
But I do want to say before we go that it's all about moving in love and unity. And once we can do what they did back in the day when they walked on that bridge in love and unity, all faces, white, black, brown, everybody was along in those pictures that we seen. Yes. When we're ready to move in love and unity, like I think Jimi Hendrix says, when the power of love outweighs the love of power, the world will know peace. So I really wanted to share. I don't know if I want to share the More Than Free, but I think I want to share a piece of hashtag Jesus is love.
Okay.
So I just a little part of it, and it says, for those of you interested in responding to this post with anti-Christ sentiments, I pray you post elsewhere. For responding, love is the answer is ingrained in my spirit as found in the New Testament. In fact, it was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and the other civil rights leaders who actually practiced and followed the true teachings of Jesus on their quest for freedom. They didn't just pray and wait for change to come. They prayed, fought with diligence, or worked in diligence, fought with vigilance and love that is, all while looking up. Don't be deceived. Believing on the mighty name of Jesus has brought us a mighty long way and kept us from responding in fear and retaliating in hate. And the problem is not in Blacks believing in Christ. The problem is us in the U.S. not knowing who we are while taking for granted the power we've been granted to overcome. So when the power of love outweighs the love of power, the world will know peace. To God be the glory. Hashtag Jesus is love.
Wow, everybody. Yeah.
That's one. Yeah.
Boy, I tell you, he is strong inspirations. I find these people, they find me somehow, and here we go.
Yes.
Can I say one last thing by doing this?
Can I say one last thing?
Yes.
Because my son is not the only artist, right? I've spent my time finding young artists with music to motivate the mind. One thing I noticed in that Jubilee is during the hip hop caucus, there were no young people, only my son that were on that mic. You know, the thing that's destroying our youth today is the music, the negative words that's coming out of the music. The power of life and death is in the tongue. And instead of us taking that and doing what they're doing with hip hop, we just kind of let them say whatever. We let them carry guns and stuff. Well, in the midst of all the kids that were dying in my city in 2021, I found kids that were expressing their pain through their music. So that's what we also have. And next year, I pray that they will allow at least 5 or 6 of the young artists that I have to just get on the stage and share their music to motivate the mind. And I promise you, all the kids that were walking around, yes, on the weekend, there was a lot of teenagers walking around. They were not up at that stage. There were not a lot of activities that they were engaged themselves in, but they would come if those young people were rapping about positive things, or turning their pain, what I'm saying, to their purpose, sharing what it is that they've been going through, and if they could see them expressing that in a positive light, then they also could be moved to do the same thing. That's what I really want. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You proud of yourself, aren't you?
Well, I am. I met with a lot of opposition here in Knoxville, and that's what moved me to go where I am. I feel I need to go back to Birmingham. I was scared for a long time to go back. I even moved from Birmingham. I moved because I witnessed kids dying when I was 12 years old, and I left. So I'm proud of myself, but I feel like my light is not bright enough so that people can see, what I'm saying, what happens when you really just give a young person who's traumatized the pen, the mic, and let them speak. And I just want people to hear me so that they can be able, what I'm saying, to do what I'm saying my grandmama did for me. My grandmother did for me. Yes, my teachers did for me. What you're doing for me, what you're doing for everybody. You are highlighting the people. It's about the people. It's just about the people and what it is that they can do. And I feel like in Knoxville, they're not there yet. So they're getting there. There's a lot of men that get praised for doing what they do. But for the women, they said to me on occasions here that I wasn't a man. And they said that while I was bringing a young man fresh out of jail to meet with them. And they were saying that because I wasn't a man, they didn't feel that the young man could relate to me. They don't want to talk to me. And I thought that was crazy because I'm a mother. 2 boys. I raised my brother and I'm a mother and I have sons. So I just want there to be more respect. That's why I do the Mamie story. I want us to have more respect for the mothers and take mothers and fathers. We all have a piece of the puzzle. So I'm proud. I mean, I feel
hey, let me tell you something. You on the right road and you know it. And they know it. They can't stop you.
I appreciate that.
They can't stop you. Everybody, this is strong inspiration. They can't stop her. And she knows this. Look at that light shining through. Look at that light shining through on this sister. And God has got you. There's no question about it. He's got things for you. You just keep moving forward and listen to him and hear his voice. And all those experiences that have happened to you and the things that grandma said and even grandfather. And that whole scenario has shaped you to be who you are. You got a beautiful spirit. When she walked up to me, I felt it. I said, my God, there was no question about it. She smiles all the time. Ain't no frown on her face. Pretty smile. Y'all see it. So hit the subscribe button. I don't mean to bring that up. Hit the subscribe button, those strong inspirations. Hit the like button. There is no love button here. But if it was, I know you would hit it. Hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. You get a ding, a shot. I got one quick question. Do you have a website? How do people follow you?
Yes, they can follow me on my website. It's www.divineurbanexpressions.com. But also go my social media. I have Love is the Answer Community Showcase on Facebook. I have Divine Urban Expressions on Facebook. So you can follow me there. I have Move in Love on Facebook. So I even have a mural that I produced a mural. So you can go look at 25 young people who we're commemorating that are no longer on this earth, that were killed in all different ways. So we have them. So you can follow me. And I welcome the opportunity to come to your city. Invite me to your city, invite me to your school. My main goal is to get into the schools. And I would love to do a Move in Love assembly and bring my young artists with me so they can have an audience that can show them love. And it could be twofold. They inspire the kids and the kids inspire them.
There you go.
Yes.
Well, that's the story, everybody. go to my website, businessintheblack.net. And let me say this to you, sister, and I mean this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep doing what you're doing. God has got you. I know it. I can feel it, and you know it. And the people who are your detractors know it. Because you're doing the right thing. Thank you for coming on the show.
One
We'll talk
love.
offline. I got big something for you. There's no
Yes.
question about it.
One love.
Bye-bye. We'll say we out. Thank you.
Bye-bye.